My name is Steve Tatai, and I've been a passionate wrestling fan since I was a kid in the early 80s and a proud part of the wrestling industry since 1995. My peak years were that of a booker, matchmaker, or creative type, but like most in the business, I've worn many hats. From wrestling and managing, promoting shows and tours, recruiting and developing talent, a ton of writing, and so much more, with the bulk of my career working for WWE Hall of Famer Afa the Wild Samoan and his family, and in modern years for WWE Hall of Famer Jeff Jarrett. Over time, I shifted out of wrestling into screenwriting, which has culminated in my latest project bridging these two worlds, Kings of the Ring. Kings of the Ring is the first ever audio drama podcast about professional wrestling. For those new to audio drama podcasts, they are dramatized stories read aloud, like an audiobook, but broken up into episodes. There are a lot of ways to do this, but Kings of the Ring is a true theater of the mind experience, with music, sound effects, and individual voices for all characters. What Kings of the Ring is a sensationalized and romanticized fictional version of the 1980s wrestling era, following the rise and fall of the power players of pro wrestling and the behind-the-scenes world of that industry, just like other industry-based shows like Empire, The Deuce, Entourage, Mad Men, and many more. Kings of the Ring takes all the events, stories, legends, rumors, and what-ifs of wrestling, puts it together, modifies it, rearranges it, and reassembles it in the context of one giant story that is being presented to you as a fictional series in the style of a cable TV drama. And what better way to tell a cable TV drama story about wrestling than to begin with the most significant period in wrestling history, the early 80s. In a Sports Illustrated interview from 1985, Vince McMahon said something to the effect of, "My father never would have agreed to sell the WWF if he knew what I had planned." Now, without knowing anything about the personal relationship between Vince and his father, the idea of that conflict is the launching point of Kings of the Ring. Jonathan Kane, an iconic promoter from New York, dies, and his son Julian inherits the promotion and embarks on a quest to conquer the wrestling world, and in the process destroy everything his father worked a lifetime to build. Join us as we take you back to the 1980s. You'll be a fly on the wall in the locker rooms of the past, seeing how the wrestlers put together their matches. We'll take you into the jam-packed arenas where the rabid fans of the past believed everything they saw was real. We'll take you inside the ring where you'll hear what the wrestlers talk about, and you can feel the action. We'll take you to the underbelly of the arena where the wrestlers got into all sorts of trouble. And we'll take you into the bars and clubs where the boys got into even more trouble. And it wouldn't be 80s wrestling if we didn't end up at the motel rooms. That is Kings of the Ring. As you enter this alternate universe and meet the characters of this world, you'll find yourself paralleling them with someone in real life. You'll also recognize stories and events as similar to real life as well. This is by design. However, you'll find out that these characters, either through personality or actions, will diverge at some point. Think of that Tim Allen movie Galaxy Quest, where he portrayed a William Shatner type for a Star Trek type show. But at some point, the Tim Allen character split completely from that, to where he was nothing like Shatner and was truly his own thing. That's Kings of the Ring. And the same goes for the events in Kings. Some things will play out as you might expect, or at least how you think you remember it. Other things will be a little different, and other events will go in a completely different direction. That's part of the fun of this series, and having that creative license to modify things in ways to tell an interesting and cohesive story, because in this world, every legend, rumor, or what if you ever heard is fair game. And that's what this is, a show. This isn't a historical documentary. This is a show about the wrestling industry. And honestly, isn't it time wrestling got its turn at bat? There have been and will be some other shows on TV with a backdrop of wrestling or a focus on some individual stories like Glow on Netflix. But wouldn't it be nice to see a true Game of Thrones type show about the actual wrestling business? Because that's what Kings of the Ring is. And what a treasure trove of stories wrestling has to tell. As we all know, oftentimes the behind-the-scenes story can be more interesting than what makes it into the wrestling ring. That's what Kings of the Ring is. As a cable TV drama type show, there will be R-rated activity, which is appropriate for a show that depicts the behind-the-scenes world of 80s wrestling. Like I said earlier, you get a peek at their lives in and out of the ring. Podcasting doesn't have a rating system like movies or TV, but if it did, this would be a mature-rated show for profanity, violent, sexual content, and drug use. Keep this in mind if you have kids in the car when you listen, and while we have no control over who downloads this, I would not endorse Kings of the Ring for anyone under 18. This show is for the fans. For those who grew up on wrestling in the 80s, completely unaware of the insanity and drama that was going on behind that curtain. This show is for those in the UK, India, Australia, New Zealand, and other parts of the world who completely missed out on the 80s American wrestling scene. This show is for those who grew up in the 2000s, who literally can't comprehend a world where people walk the street believing that wrestling was real. And I was one of them, so save your judgment. But this lets you see what that world was actually like. And this show is for those in the wrestling business, for the current wrestlers who know the icons of the 80s as retired legends from conventions and indie shows and have seen their work on YouTube and the WWE Network. Kings is intended to portray the world they came from. For those who joined the wrestling industry in the 90s or early 2000s, Kings gives you a glorified and romanticized depiction of the generation that awed and inspired us as kids and made us want to get into wrestling. And for those who were in wrestling during the 80s, hopefully the show will do you honor, as ultimately this is a tribute to you in that era. Please subscribe now, so when Kings of the Ring goes live on August 30th during the All In Starrcast weekend, you will receive the first block of episodes without delay. And please spread the word about Kings of the Ring to your friends if you like how it sounds so far, or if you're at least intrigued what it might sound like. For all things Kings of the Ring, look for Kings OTR. The website is kingsotr.com. Follow us on Twitter at KingsOTR, and search us on Facebook at KingsOTR. I want to thank Conrad Thompson and the Starrcast team for letting Kings of the Ring be a part of this historic event in Chicago. I will be appearing at Starrcast to hear all your feedback and answer all your questions about Kings of the Ring, and look forward to seeing everyone there. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kings of the Ring.